Hello everyone, here is Afra Siab. Today we are going to solve Cambridge IGCSE Physics Paper 2 Multiple Choice Extended held on February-March 2020 and paper code is 0625 with variant 22. So let's start from question number 1. Question number 1. The diagram shows a rectangular metal sheet close to the rulers. So here is a metal sheet and two rulers are shown on the sides of this metal sheet. What is the area of the metal sheet? So here we have to find out the area of the metal sheet. We can see here that it's a rectangular metal sheet and the area of rectangle will be equal to length multiplied by width. I write here area is equal to length multiplied by width. From here we have to find out the value of the length and width of the metal sheet. First of all, I use a ruler and draw lines here. We can see from here this position is 10 centimeter and at this position here is 45 centimeter, while on the vertical axis here it is 5 centimeter. So length will be equal to 45 minus 10, 35 centimeter, and width is equal to 25 minus 5, which is equal to 20 centimeter. So area is equal to length is 35 multiplied by width, which is 20. So area will be equal to 700 centimeter square. From here option A is correct. Question number 2. A ball falls from desk through the air towards the ground. The diagram shows two forces acting on the ball. So first of all, here is gravitational force that is acting in downward direction and the air resistance that is acting in opposite direction. As the ball falls, the air resistance increases. Which statement is correct? So which statement is correct? As the ball falls and there is also the air resistance which increases. A. The acceleration of the ball decrease. B. The acceleration of the ball increase. C. The speed of the ball decrease. And D. The gravitational force on the ball decrease. So first of all, when the ball falls and there is also the air resistance, it means that the acceleration of ball is decreasing. So from here option A is correct. The acceleration of ball decreases. Question number 3. A compressed spring projects a ball horizontally in a vacuum chamber. On the earth, the ball reaches the chamber floor 4.0 meter in the front of spring. An identical experiment is done on the moon. The gravitational field strength is lower on the moon as compared to the earth. The experimental results on the moon are compared with those of the earth. Which statement is correct? MCQs A. The horizontal speed is greater on the moon and the ball hits the floor 4.0 meter in the front of spring. B. The horizontal speed is greater on the moon and the ball hits the floor more than 4.0 meter in the front of spring. C. The horizontal speed is same on the moon and the ball hits the floor 4.0 meter in the front of spring. D. The horizontal speed is same on the moon and the ball hits the floor more than 4.0 meter in the front of spring. So first of all, the gravitational field strength on the surface of the moon is lower as compared to the earth. It means that when I compress the spring, then it will come in contact with the surface, falls later as compared on the earth. So the ball will fall a larger distance as compared on the earth, which means that the ball hits the floor more than 4.0 meter in the front of spring and the horizontal speed is same on the moon and on the earth because it is independent of the value of g. So here option D is correct. Question number 4. Diagram 1 shows a piece of flexible material that contains many pockets of air. The diagram 2 shows the same piece of flexible material after it has been compressed so that its volume decreases. Here are two diagrams, diagram 1 which is before compression and diagram 2 when we compress it. What happens to the mass and to the weight of the flexible material when it is compressed? So what happens to the mass and the weight when we compress the flexible material? Mass and weight increases, no change, increases, no change. So first of all, mass is the intrinsic property of the body. So the mass cannot be changed. There is no change in the mass. I write here, mass remains unchanged when we apply compression, and we know that weight is equal to product of mass and g, as the value of mass remains same and also the value of g is not changing. So weight is also same. So from here, D option is correct, which shows that no change in the weight and mass. Question number 5. The graph shows how the strength of the Earth's gravitational field varies as the distance of the Earth's surface increases. So this graph shows the strength of Earth's gravitational field with the distance from the surface of the Earth. Which row describes the effect that this has on the mass and on the weight of the object as it moves further away from the Earth's surface? So from here we can see that at the surface of Earth, when the distance is 0, the strength of Earth's gravitational field is maximum. With the increase in distance, the strength of gravitational field decreases. So what will be the effect on the mass and weight of the object? So from here, mass of the object and weight of the object is given. MCQs A, decreases, B, decreases unchanged, C, unchanged, decrease, D, unchanged and unchanged. So from here option C is correct because mass is the intrinsic property of a body. It cannot be changed. So I write here, mass remains unchanged and we know that weight is equal to product of mass and g. When the g decreases as we move away from the surface of Earth, then the weight also decreases. It means that mass remains same but the weight decreases as we move away from the surface of Earth. So from here, option C is correct. Question number 6. A measuring cylinder contains 40 cubic centimeter of water. A solid metal ball is dropped into the water and water level rises to 56 cubic centimeter. The mass of ball is 80 gram. What is the density of the metal from which the ball is made? So here we have to find out the density of the metal. First of all, I write here density is equal to mass per unit volume. Volume is given. First of all, when we don't drop any metal ball, volume is 40 cubic centimeter, and then we drop a metal ball into the water, then the water level rises and it becomes 56 cubic centimeter. So volume will be equal to 56 minus 40, which is equal to 16 cubic centimeter. Next, the mass of the ball is also given, which is 80 gram. So the density will be equal to mass is 80 divided by volume 16 cubic centimeter. The unit is gram over cubic centimeter because mass is measured in gram and volume in cubic centimeter. So from here option D is correct. Question number 7. A car travels along a horizontal road at constant speed. 3 horizontal forces act on the car. The diagram shows 2 of these forces. What is the size and the direction of the third force acting on the car? So first of all, in this diagram we can see that force from engine, it is 1500 Newton and the air resistance is 300 Newton. The direction of motion of the car is forward. So here we have to find out the third force. First of all, it is given that the car travels at the constant speed. Constant speed means that its acceleration is equal to 0. So when acceleration is equal to 0, sum of all the forces acting on this will be equal to 0, which means that the forward forces will be equal to the backward forces. I write here sum of forward forces is equal to sum of backward forces. So in the forward there is only one force, which is 1500 Newton, and in the backward force and in the backward direction there is a force which is 300 Newton. So both of these forces must be equal. It means that there is a force that is acting in the backward direction from here, and its magnitude is equal to 1200. So that the backward forces will be equal to forward forces, it becomes 1500 Newton. So from here I take 1200 Newton acting in backward direction. So option A is correct. It means that this force is acting in this direction and its magnitude is 1200 Newton. Question number 8. A car is driven around a bend in the road at a constant speed. So here is a car that is moving around a bend. What is the direction of the resultant force on the car when it is going around the bend? A. Parallel to the motion and in the same direction as the motion. B. Parallel to the motion and in the same direction to the motion. C. Perpendicular to the motion and towards the inside of the bend. D. Perpendicular to the motion and towards the outside of the bend. So from here, as the car is driven around a bend. It means that it is moving into a circular path. And this is actually just a bend that is shown here. So first of all, the direction of the motion of car is also shown, which is forward. So what are the forces that is acting on this car? What is the direction of this resultant force? So this force is basically the centripetal force, which is acting towards the center. In this case, this force is acting towards the inside of this band. It will be in this direction. And this direction is perpendicular to the direction of the motion of the car, because we can see that the direction of motion of car is this and the force is this. Both of these are perpendicular. There is an angle of 90 degree. It means that from here, option C is correct, which shows that resultant force is perpendicular to the motion and towards the inside of the bend. Question number 9. An athlete with a mass 70 kg trains by performing press-ups with a load on his back. The diagram shows the perpendicular distance involved. The center of mass of the athlete is Cm and the center of mass of the load he is carrying is Cl. The mass of the load is 6.0 kg. What is the upward forces exerted by his two arms? So first of all, here we have to calculate the value of the upward forces that is exerted by the arms of this athlete. So from here, first of all, we calculate the weight of this athlete and also the load. So weight will be equal to, that is for athlete, it is product of mass and G. Mass of the athlete is 70 multiplied by G is 10. It will be equal to 700 kg. Next, the mass of the load is 6.0 multiplied by the value of G is 10. So the weight of the load will be equal to 60 kg. Next, we can see here that the weight is acting in downward direction. Also, the load is in downward direction, while this athlete arms forces are in upward direction. So actually there is the law of conservation of moment, that the total clockwise movement will be equal to anti-clockwise movement. Load and weight are acting in direction, so they causes the anti-clockwise movement. While the upward forces causes the clockwise movement. So according to this principle, the clockwise movement must be equal to anti-clockwise movement. So I write here anti-clockwise movement is equal to clockwise movement. As the anti-clockwise movement is caused by the load and weight, so first of all, for the weight, I write here, actually movement is equal to force multiplied by the perpendicular distance. So in this case, weight is equal to force. So for the weight, I write here WA multiplied by perpendicular distance. So in this case, the perpendicular distance is 0.9 plus the weight of load multiplied by the load is acting at this position. So this total distance is basically the perpendicular distance and it is equal to 1.2. So multiply it 1.2, it will be equal to force that is acting in upward direction multiplied by the perpendicular distance. So this distance is basically equal to 1.3. So I write here F multiplied by 1.3. So it will be equal to 1.3 F is equal to 702, and force will be equal to 702 divided by 1.3, and it is equal to 540 Newton. So from here option C is correct. Question number 10. An air pistol fires a pellet forwards. What is the motion of the air pistol? MCQs A. The air pistol moves backward with a speed greater than the pellet. B. The air pistol moves backward with a speed less than the pellet. C. The air pistol moves forward with a speed greater than the pellet. And D. The pistol moves forward with a speed less than the pellet. So first of all, here is actually the concept of momentum, that the momentum remain conserved. It means that the momentum of the air pistol will be equal to the momentum of the pellet. And it is the product of mass and velocity. It is also the product of mass and velocity. So first of all, the mass of air pistol is very large as compared to pellet. When the mass of air pistol is large, it means that its speed or velocity is very small. So the air pistol moves with the speed that is less than the speed of the pellet. So from here, option B is correct, because the air pistol moves backward with a speed that is less than the pellet. Question number 11. Which road describes an advantage and disadvantage of wind turbine? So here is advantage and second one is disadvantage. A. No fuel needed, harmful gases released. B. Variable supply, fuel needed. C. No harmful gases released, variable supply. D. Constant supply and noisy. So from here option C is correct, that the advantage is that no harmful gases released and disadvantage is variable supply. Question number 12. An electric motor provides 900 joule of useful output energy. The efficiency of the motor is 60%. How much electrical energy is supplied to the motor? So from here we have to calculate the input energy. First of all, I write here efficiency is equal to output energy divided by input energy. So here efficiency is 60%. It will be 60 divided by 100. Output energy is given 900 divided by input energy. So input energy is equal to 900 multiplied by 100 divided by 60. So that the value of input energy comes to be 1500 joule. From here option C is correct. Question number 13. A crane takes 2.0 minutes to lift a 500 kilogram load to the top of building that is 12 meter high. So here mass of the load, time taken and height is given. What is the useful power developed against gravity by the crane? So here we have to find out the value of power. Power is equal to energy over time, and it is basically equal to work over time. So energy is mgh divided by time. Mass is given 500 multiplied by the value of g is 10 and the height is 12 meter divided by time is 2 minutes, and we have to convert it into seconds. So it will be 2.0 multiplied by 60. So that power will be equal to 500. The unit of power is watt. So from here option C is correct. Question number 14. A skier is standing still on a flat area of snow. The weight of the skier is 550 Newton. The total area of his skis in contact with the ground is 0.015 meters square. What is the pressure exerted on the ground by the skier? So here we have to find out the pressure. Pressure will be equal to force over area. Here the weight of skier is given, which is basically equal to the force. So I write here 550 divided by area is 0.015. So the value of pressure will be equal to 3666.6. So that in the options we are given A 0.83 Newton per meter square, B 8.3 Newton per meter square, C 3700 Newton per meter square, D 37,000 Newton per meter square. So from here it will be equal to 37,000 Newton per meter square. That is closest answer, so D is correct. Question number 15. A tall cylinder is partly filled with two liquids which do not mix. The two liquids have different densities. A student measures the pressure due to the liquids at different depths. So here are two liquids. Their positions are shown P and Q. Two liquids with different densities. Which graph shows how the liquid pressure varies between position P and Q? So here we have to show the variation of the liquid pressure. So first of all, you can see here that the densities of both of these liquids are different. So the pressure changes at a different rate. In the first, we can see here from point P to this point and from this point to Q. The pressure changes at the same rate. So this is incorrect. B, we can see here first of all pressure from point P to this point and from this point to Q. Here the pressure changes at different rate. So B option is correct. We also see the other. Here pressure is changes with the change in depth, but it remains constant. So it is also incorrect. Option D, here pressure is also constant, even it does not increase with the increase in depth. So this is also incorrect. Question number 16. When pollen grains in water are viewed through a microscope, they are seen to be in continuous, rapid random motions. What causes a pollen grain to move in this way? MCQs: A. Convection currents in the water. B. Bombardment by a single molecule of the water. C. Uneven bombardment of the different size by the water molecules. D. Collision with another pollen grain due to the kinetic energies. So first of all, I consider that here is water in a beaker. And there is also the water molecules and pollen grain molecules. These are pollen grain molecules. So first of all, we consider this molecule, that this molecule is bombarded from different side by the water molecule. Like here is also bombardment from different side. But the green that is on the surface of the water, it is only bombarded from the surface, not from the upward direction. It means that there is uneven bombardment on different side by the water molecules, due to which the pollen grains are in continuous random motion. So from here option C is correct, which shows that uneven bombardment on different side by the water molecules. Question number 17. A student measures the mass of warm water in an open container over 2 minutes. The container is kept at constant temperature. The results are in table. So first of all, mass is measured in gram and time is taken in minutes. Time is up to 2.0 minutes while the mass is decreasing. First of all, it is 33.9, then 30.6, 27.6, 24.9 and 22.5. Why does the mass of water changes? MCQs: A. The water evaporates. B. The water freezes. C. The water condenses. D. The water boils. So first of all, we can see here that this water is warm. It means that the water has high temperature. So when the temperature is high, the water evaporates. So basically there is evaporation. MCQs: A is correct. In the evaporation, the fast moving molecules escape from the surface, leaving only the small energy molecules. So the mass decreases. Question number 18. Which points are the fixed points of the liquid in glass thermometer shown? So here is a liquid in glass thermometer. What are the fixed points? MCQs: A. The beginning and end points of the column of liquid. B. The points marked -10 degrees C and 110 degrees C. C. The point marked 0 degrees C and 100 degrees C. D. The top and bottom points of the thermometer bulb. So from here, the fixed points are actually 0 degrees C and 100 degrees C. So C option is correct. Question number 19. The specific heat capacities of aluminium, iron, ethanol and water are given. So these are substance: aluminium, iron, ethanol, water, and the specific heat capacities of all of these are given. 1 kilogram of each metal is put into 5 kilogram of each liquid. The starting temperature of each metal is 60 degrees C. The starting temperature of each liquid is 10 degrees C. Which example has the highest final temperature? So which one of the following has the highest final temperature? In order to find the final temperature, first of all, I find out the energy that is absorbed by these. So I write here E, that is for aluminium, or it is heat for aluminium, it is equal to mc delta T, where mass is 1 kilogram. For each metal, it is given here. So I write here 1.0 multiplied by C, that is the specific heat capacity. For aluminium, it is 900 multiplied by change in temperature. So change in temperature is basically final temperature minus initial temperature. I write final temperature T minus initial temperature for metal is given, which is 60 degrees C. So minus 60 degrees C. So from here, Q aluminium will be equal to 900 T minus 60. Next, I find out the heat for iron. It will be equal to Mass of iron is again 1 kilogram multiplied by specific heat capacity is 450 and temperature is final temperature T minus initial temperature 60. So it will be T minus 60 and then it will be equal to 450 T minus 60. Next, heat for ethanol. It will be equal to mass of ethanol is 5.0 because it's a liquid. So 5.0 multiplied by specific heat capacity is 2400 multiplied by change in temperature is T minus it is 10 degree C, that is for the liquid. So I write here T minus 10. It will be equal to 12,000 T minus 10. Next we find out the heat for water. It will be mass is 5.0 multiplied by 4200 and temperature is T minus 10 degree C. Then Q water will be equal to 21,000 T minus 10 degree C. So here we have find out the heat for all of these substances. Next, in the first MCQs, option A, here is aluminium and ethanol. So here, first of all, I consider aluminium and ethanol. Here I write A, which is MCQs A. So the heat of aluminium is equal to heat of ethanol I am going to put values here. It will be equal to 900 T minus 60. It will be equal to, for the ethanol it is 12,000 T minus 10. So when we simplify this, then the temperature will be equal to 13.488 degree C. Second option is iron and ethanol. It means that heat of iron is equal to heat of ethanol. Now I am going to put values here. For the iron it is 450 into T minus 60. Which will be equal to, for ethanol, 12,000 T minus 10 degree C. So the value of temperature in this case will be equal to 12.05 degree C. Next, C option is for aluminium and water. I write here heat of aluminium is equal to heat of water. So for the aluminium, 900 T minus 60. It will be equal to, for water, 21,000 T minus 10 degree C. So from here temperature will be equal to 11.048 degree C. For the last option D, that is iron and water. Heat of iron is equal to heat of water. So for the iron, 450 T minus 60. it will be equal to, for water it is 21,000 T minus 10 degree C. So the temperature will be equal to 11.8 degree C. So from here, when I see all of these temperature, the highest temperature is 13.488 degree C, which is for MCQs A. It means that the aluminium and ethanol has the highest final temperature. So I circle A. Here A is correct. Question number 20. Metals are good thermal conductors. Insulators are poor thermal conductors. Which description of the mechanism of thermal conductivity is correct? MCQs A. In the insulator, conduction takes place by electron transfer and molecules vibration. B. In the insulator, conduction takes place by the electron transfer only. C. In the metals, conduction takes place by electron transfer and the molecular vibration. D. In the metal, conduction takes place by electron transfer only. So from here, we know that in the metal there are free electrons, and in the insulators the electrons are not free, they are fixed to their position. So in the metal, conduction takes place by the electron transfer and also by the molecular vibration. So from here option C is correct. Question number 21. A teacher shows his class a polystyrene cup. The cup is made from thick plastic with lots of tiny air bubbles in it. He asks the class why the cup is so good at keeping a hot drink warm. 3 suggestions are made. 1. It contains air which is poor thermal conductor. 2. The air is trapped in tiny bubbles, so very little convection is possible. 3. The plastic is the poor thermal conductor. Which suggestions are correct? A. 1 and 2 only. B. 1 and 3 only. C. 2 and 3 only. D. 1, 2 and 3. So first of all of these suggestions are correct. In the first, it is said that the air is a poor thermal conductor, which is possible. So this is correct. In the last one, plastic is a poor thermal conductor. It is also correct. 2. The air is trapped in a tiny bubbles, so there will be very less convection, which is also correct. So from here, option D is correct. Question number 22. A boy jumps into an indoor swimming pool. He notices that the water appears to get cooled as he goes deeper underwater. This is due to the convection. Which statement is correct? A. Cooled water is more dense than the warm water, so it sinks to the bottom of the pool. B. Warm water is more dense than the cooled water, so it rises to the surface of the pool. C. The molecule in the cooled water have more kinetic energy than the molecules in the warm water, so they move to the bottom of the pool faster. D. The molecules in the warm water are closer together than the molecules in the cooled water, so they rise to the surface of the pool. So from here we know that the molecules of the warm water has more kinetic energy. But in the option C, it is given that the molecules in the cooled water has more kinetic energy, so this is incorrect. Also, the D option is correct, which shows that the molecules in the warm water are closer. Because the molecules in the warm water has high temperature, due to which they move faster and there is a distance between them. So this is also incorrect. The warm water has more density than the cooled water, so it rises to the surface of the pool. This is also incorrect, because the warm water has small density as compared to cooled water. So from here, MCQs A is correct. which shows that the cold water is more dense than the warm water, so it sinks to the bottom of the pool. Question number 23. Four students A, B, C and D investigate the diffraction of the water waves through a gap. Each student uses a different gap size and a different wavelength for the water waves. Which student produces the waves which have more diffraction? So here diffraction is possible when the gap size is smaller as compared to wavelength, or the gap size is comparable with the wavelength. So in this diagram we can see that there is more bending, which means that there is more diffraction. So for the better diffraction, the gap size is comparable with the wavelength. So gap size is smaller or it is equal to the wavelength. From the MCQs we can see here that gap size is given in centimeter and wavelength is also given in centimeter. MCQs A 2.0 1.8, B 3.0 2.1, C 4.0 2.0, D 5.0 and 0.9. So from here first of all we see the last option. The gap size which is 5.0, it is much larger than 0.9. So this is incorrect. In this case there is only very small diffraction. Option C is 4.0 greater than 2.0. So it is also incorrect. B 3.0 is also greater than 2.1, which is incorrect. And last option is A, which shows that 2.0 and 1.8. Both of these are closer. It means that the gap size is comparable with the wavelength. So from here, MCQs A is correct. In the case of gap size 2.0 cm and wavelength 1.8 cm, there will be more diffraction. Question number 24. The diagram shows examples of the wave motion. So here is figure 1, which shows the ripple tank, and the waves produced by the ripple tank is actually the water waves. 2. Waves in the air. 3. Waves on the rope, and 4. Waves in a spring. So first of all, which waves are longitudinal? In the longitudinal wave, the particles of the medium moves parallel to the direction of motion of the wave. In the fourth diagram, we can see here that this is the direction, and also the wave is produced in this direction. The vibration is also produced in the horizontal direction. So both of these are parallel, which means that the waves in the spring is longitudinal. We can see also 3. The waves on the rope, as we produce vibration up and down and wave moves from left to right. Both of these are perpendicular to each other, so this is not longitudinal. Again, the waves on the water are not longitudinal. B. The drum waves in the air. So waves in the air are basically longitudinal wave. So from here, A 1 only, B 2 and 3 only, C 2, 3 and 4, D 2 and 4 only. So from here, D option is correct, because waves in the spring and waves in the air, both of these are longitudinal. Question number 25. Which diagram shows how the light from a candle is deflected by a mirror and shows the position of the image formed? So first of all, there are 4 diagrams which shows that the light from the candle is reflected by the mirror and then forms the image. So which diagram is correct here? First of all, we see A, that the light from the candle comes and falls on the mirror. Then the image is formed on the opposite side. Here is the eye that is used to see this image. First of all, I draw a diagram here. Using a ruler, I make a line. So this is the image that is shown by the blue line, while the red line is actually show that eye is used to see this image. We know that by the mirrors, the image is formed that is of the same size, but on the opposite side as that of the object. In this case, object lies on the left side, which is candle, while the image of the candle is formed on the right side. So this is correct. In the MCQs B, we see here that candle is on the left side and also the image on the right side. But if I draw here a line, then in order to see the image of the candle, eye should be at this position, not at some angle. So this is incorrect. In the MCQ C, we see here that object is at this location while the image is formed on the opposite side but below. So the image is formed at the same position as that of the object but in opposite direction. So it is also incorrect. In the MCQs D, also the image is formed here but the object is placed here. So it is also incorrect. Only A is correct, which shows that the image is at the same position as that of the object but in the opposite direction, and there is an eye that is used to see this image. So from here, MCQs A is correct. Question number 26. A converging lens can be used as a magnifying glass. What will be the nature of the image? So first of all, MCQs A is given real, inverted and diminished. B, real, upright and enlarged. C, virtual, inverted and enlarged. D, virtual, upright and enlarged. So from here, the image formed by the magnifying glass is virtual, upright and enlarged, which means that D option is correct. Question number 27. The wavelength of the blue light changes from 4.7 into 10 to the power minus 7 meter to 3.5 into 10 to the power minus 7 meter as it passes from air to water. What is the speed of this light in water? So we have to find out the speed of this light into water. So there is basically refraction. In the refraction, when the wave or light changes its medium, its frequency remains same. So I use here wave equation that V is equal to F lambda. I write it for two mediums. So it will be V1 is equal to F1 lambda 1 and V2 is equal to F2 lambda 2. So frequency remains same in both of the mediums. So F will be equal to V1 over lambda 1 and F is equal to V2 over lambda 2. So by comparing both of these equations, I simply write V1 over lambda 1 is equal to V2 over lambda 2. So we have to find out the wavelength of the, so here we have to find out the speed of this light in the water. I suppose that 1 subscript for the air and 2 for the water. So first of all, the speed of the light in air is 3 into 10 to the power 8 meter per second divided by wavelength is given, which is equal to 4.7 into 10 की power minus 7. It will be V2 divided by 3.5 into 10 की power minus 7. So V2 is equal to, this minus 7 cancels by this. So 3.0 into 10 की power 8 multiply by 3.5 divided by 4.7. So that the value of V2 will be equal to 2.23 into 10 की power 8 meter per second. So this is the speed of the light in the water. From here, option C is correct. 2.2 into 10 की power 8 meter per second. Question number 28. The diagram shows compressions and rarefactions in the air as the sound wave moves from left to right. So there are the compressions and rarefaction. A quicker sound of the same frequency is made. What will happen to the number of particles in the region of rarefaction and the region of compression? So first of all, compression is the region where the particles are closer to each other. It means that in the compression there are large number of molecules or large number of particles, but in the rarefaction there are very small number of particles. But when the clear sound is made, then the amplitude of the sound becomes small. When the amplitude is small, then for the smaller amplitude sound, in the rarefaction the number of particles increases, but in the compression the number of particles decreases. So from here, the number of particles in the region of rarefaction and the number of particles in the region of compression. From here, option C is correct, which shows that the number of particles in rarefaction increases, but the number of particles in region of compression decreases. Question number 29. The diagram shows three different metal rods P, Q and R inside coil of wire. Small iron nails are placed on a wooden bench under the rods. Diagram 1 shows the situation when there are electric current in the wires. Diagram 2 shows the situation when the currents are switched off. So first of all, there are two diagrams. Diagram 1 shows when the current is passing through the coil, and in diagram 2 there is no current in the coils. Which row correctly identifies the metal rods? So first of all, we can see here there is a wooden bench and also these are nails. These are made from copper, iron and steel. We have to identify that which one is copper, iron and steel. So first of all, when the current in the coils are passing, then the nails are attracted towards the coil, which means that in the Q and R, the nails are attracted towards the coil. So both of these are magnetized, but the P is not magnetized, which shows that the P is a copper. So I write here P is copper. Next we have to identify that between Q and R, which one of the following is steel and iron. Steel remains magnetized or it attracts the nails even when there is no current passing through the coil. So in the case when no current is passing through the coil, we can see R that the nails are still attached with these. So this is basically steel, while the Q is iron. So from here, MCQs A, copper, soft iron, steel. B, soft iron, copper and steel. C, steel, soft iron and copper. D, copper, steel and soft iron. So from here option A is correct, which shows that P is copper, that I write here. Q is soft iron and R is steel. So option A is correct. Question number 30. Which law describes conventional current and electron current in a circuit containing a cell? Conventional current and electron flow. MCQs A. From the negative terminal of the cell to the positive terminal of the cell. Electron from the negative terminal of the cell to positive terminal of the cell. So this is incorrect because the direction of conventional current and electron flow is not same. B. From the negative terminal of the cell to the positive terminal of the cell. Electron flow from the positive terminal of the cell to the negative terminal of the cell. So this is also incorrect because the electron flows from the negative terminal of the cell to positive terminal of the cell. C. From the positive terminal of the cell to the negative terminal of the cell. From the negative terminal of the cell to positive terminal of the cell. So this is correct, which shows that the electron flow from negative terminal to positive terminal of the cell, and conventional current is from positive terminal to negative terminal of the cell. So this option is correct. Question number 31. A student makes 4 resistors using different pieces of wire. The wires have different diameters and length. All the pieces of the wire are made of the same material. Which piece of the wire will make the resistor with the larger resistance? So which one of the following has the largest resistance? Diameter is given and also the length is given, which is in centimeter. So first of all, I write here resistance is equal to rho L over A. Here rho is basically resistivity that depends upon the material of the wire. In this case, the material of the wire is same, so the resistivity in all of these cases is same. I also write here in term of diameter 4 rho L over pi d square. Now I am going to put values here. For A, R will be equal to 4. I write rho as it is. Multiply by rho, and length is 10 centimeter divided by 3.14. Diameter is 0.8 square. So it will be equal to 19.90 ohms multiplied by resistivity. For the wire B, R will be equal to 4 multiplied by resistivity. Length is 17 while the diameter is 0.8. 17 divided by 3.14 and 0.8 square. So the resistance will be equal to 33.83 ohms multiplied by resistivity. For wire C, I write here C. Resistance will be equal to 4 multiplied by resistance 10 divided by 3.14 2.0 square. So the resistance will be equal to 3.18 ohms multiplied by resistivity. For the wire D, I write here R is equal to 4 multiplied by rho and length is 17 divided by 3.14 2.0 square. It will be equal to 5.41 ohms multiplied by resistivity. So all of these wires, the value of resistivity is same because the wires are made of the same material. So we guess that which one of the wire has the largest resistance. It is for the wire B, which shows 33.83. So from here, option B is correct. Question number 32. A student is to determine the resistance of resistor R. She uses a circuit including a voltmeter and an ammeter. Which circuit should be used? So which one of the circuits should be used in order to calculate resistance? So basically voltmeter is used to measure the potential difference and it is always connected in parallel in the circuit, while the ammeter is always connected in series in the circuit. So from here we can see in the A that voltmeter and the ammeter are connected in series, so it is incorrect. In the B we can see that both the voltmeter and the ammeter, these are connected parallel, so it is also incorrect. C, here the ammeter is connected parallel to the resistance while the voltmeter in series. So the option C is also incorrect because the ammeter should be in series while the voltmeter in parallel. In the option D, we see here that the voltmeter is parallel to the resistance while the ammeter is in series. So option D is correct. Question number 33. The diagram shows a battery connected to two resistors. Three ammeters M1, M2 and M3 are connected in the circuit. Ammeter M1 reads 1.0 ampere. What are the reading on M2 and M3? So first of all, in this figure, we can see that all of these ammeters are connected in series, and in the series combination, the value of the current remains same. It means that the current that is measured by the ammeter M1 will be equal to the value of the current measured by the M2 and M3. So from here, when the ammeter M1 reads 1.0 ampere, it means that value of current measured by the M2 and M3 will also be equal to 1.0 ampere. So from here option D is correct, which shows the reading on M2 is 1.0 and reading on M3 is 1.0 ampere. Question number 34. A cell is connected to a parallel combination of 2.0 ohm resistor and 4.0 ohm resistor. The current in 4.0 ohm resistor is 1.0 ampere. What is the current in the cell? So first of all, here we have to find out the total current in this cell. This current will be the sum of the current passing through both of these resistances, because you can see here that 2.0 ohm resistance and 4.0 ohm resistance, both of these are connected in parallel, and in the parallel combination the current is different while the potential difference is same. So first of all, I write here current is different while the potential difference is same. It means that potential difference of 2.0 ohm resistance will be equal to potential difference of 4.0 ohm resistance. And also it is given that the current passing through 4.0 ohm resistor is 1.0. It means that 1.0 ampere current is passing through 4.0 ohm resistor. So I write here, by using Ohm's law, V is equal to IR, and I write it 4.0 ohm resistance. It will be equal to the current that is passing through 4.0 ohm resistor is 1.0 multiplied by 4.0, which is equal to 4.0 volt. So this 4.0 volt is actually across both of these resistance. So I write here V is equal to 4.0 volt. Again V is equal to 4.0 volt. Next I use the Ohm's law for another resistance. So I write here V is equal to IR and I is equal to V over R. So this is a current basically through 2.0 ohm resistance. So 4.0 ohm resistor, this is basically equal to 2.0 ohm divided by R, because both of the potential difference values are same. So I put here 4.0 divided by 2.0, which is 2.0 ampere. So this is the value of current passing through 2.0 ohm resistor. We have to find out the total current in the cell. So total current will be the sum of both of these current values. I write here. It will be 2.0 plus 1.0, which is equal to 3.0 ampere. It means that the total current of this cell is 3.0 ampere, which is option D. So from here, option D is correct. Question number 35. The two inputs of the NAND gate are joined together. So there are two inputs of the NAND gate that are joined together. Which truth table represents the action of this gate? When the two inputs of the NAND gate are joined together, it means that there is NOT gate that converts 0 into 1 and 1 into 0. So which one of the truth table is for the action of this gate? Here in A, we can see input 0 remains 0 and 1 changes into 0, so it is not possible. B, 0 changes into 1 and 1 changes into 0, which is the truth table for NOT gate. So this is correct. Third one, we also see that 0 remains 0 and 1 remains 1. So it is also incorrect. D, 0 changes into 1 but 1 remains 1. So it is also incorrect. Question number 36. The diagram shows a transformer that has an output voltage of 12 volt. So here is a transformer whose output voltage is given 12 volt. The number of turns on the primary coil is 1000 while the input voltage is 240 volt. How many turns of the wire are in the secondary coil? So here we have to find out the number of turns in secondary coil. I use here formula Ns over Np is equal to Vs over Vp. Then Ns will be equal to Vs over Vp multiplied by Np. Vs is 12 volt, that is the output voltage, divided by input voltage 240 multiplied by the number of turns in primary, which is 1000. So the number of turns in secondary coil will be equal to 50. From here option C is correct. Question number 37. The diagram shows different particles moving through a magnetic field. Which particle experiences a magnetic force acting up out of the plane of the paper? So first of all, 4 diagrams are shown. In the first diagram, it is given that proton is moving from right to left while the magnetic field is from left to right. So both of these are antiparallel. When the angle between direction of motion of the particle and magnetic field is 0 or 180, then force will be equal to 0. So there is no force on the proton that is moving antiparallel to magnetic field. In this case, force is equal to 0. B option is that electron is again moving from right to left while the magnetic field is from left to right. So both of these are antiparallel, due to which force is also 0. Here in the option C, we can see here the proton is moving from top to bottom and the magnetic field is from left to right, so that there is an angle of 90 between them. We have to find out the direction of force. So first of all, it is the direction of motion of the particle while it is the direction of magnetic field. We have to rotate our fingers of the left hand from the velocity vector to the direction of magnetic field. Then our thumb represents the direction of force. In this case, the force will be out of the plane of paper, which is asked in this question. So this option is correct. In the option D, it is given that electron is moving as the charge on electron is opposite as that of the proton. It means that the force that is acting on the electron is into the plane. So it is incorrect. Question number 38. When Rutherford bombarded the gold foil with alpha particles, he found that some alpha particles were deflected through large angles. Which statement explains this deflection? MCQs A. Most of the atom consists of empty space. B. All of the positive charges and most of the mass of the gold atom are concentrated in a small volume. C. Positive charge in the gold atom is spread evenly throughout the atom. D. All of the negative charge is concentrated at its center. So from here, when most of the alpha particles were deflected at larger angle, it means that all the positive charge and most of the mass of the gold atom is concentrated in a very small volume, so that when the alpha particle come here, it is deflected at larger angle. So from here option B is correct. I circle option B. Next question, 39. The diagram shows the path followed by the alpha particle as they pass between two charged plates. They are deflected downward. So first of all, there is alpha particle which is deflecting in downward direction towards the negatively charged plate. What happens to the beta particles passing through the same electric field? So as the beta particles are just like electron, and it has negative charge, the negatively charged particle will be attracted towards the positively charged plate, so they will be goes towards the positively charged plate. So option A is they are deflected downward more than alpha particle. They are deflected upward. So B option is correct because upward plate is positive, due to which the beta particles are deflected towards the positive plate. Option C is that they are not deflected at all. It is not possible because if the particle is neutral, then there is no deflection, but in the case of charged particle, there should be deflection. They are deflected downwards by the same amount as the alpha particle. So alpha particle is basically positively charged, while the beta particle is negatively charged, so that both of these are deflected in opposite direction. That's why option B is correct. Question number 40. The graph shows the count rate from a radioactive source over a period of time. So here count rate is shown, that is on the y-axis, while the time is taken in hours along x-axis. What is the half-life of the source? So here we have to find out the half-life. First of all, we can see from this graph that initially the count rate are 2000 when no half-life pass. I write here count rate is equal to 2000 initially. Half-life is a time during which count rate remains half. So when the first half-life pass, then what will happen? Count rate also remain half. So it will be 2000 divided by 2, which is 1000. So from here we can see that 1000 is at this point. We join this point with the time axis and find out the half-life of the source. So here it is 1 hour, which means that the half-life of the source is 1 hour. Now we see the options. Option A 0.5 hour, which is incorrect. Option B 1.0 hour. So this is correct one, because the half-life of the source is 1.0 hour.